Let's bring in Colin Reed, former executive director of America Rising, and Ty Matzdorf, former deputy executive director of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. Colin, I'm going to start with you. So a gender gap exists. The numbers are stable at about 7% or so between for people preferring Democrats on a generic ballot. Even with the Kavanaugh confirmation battle but tightening, what do you make of it?
Well, I think, Harris, on the gender gap question, there were a lot of experts in D.C. who used the gender gap issue to predict why Hillary Clinton would beat Donald Trump 2 years ago, and look how that turned out. But on the other side, in that poll that you just mentioned, you see President Trump's approval numbers getting better. And midterm elections, regardless of what year they are, they have a couple things in common. One, they tend to be referendums on the party in power. So the president's numbers getting better is good news for all Republicans. And two, they tend to be base elections. And the president being out there everywhere, flooding the zone with interviews, with town halls, with events, that's good news for Republicans because he's the best messenger to drive out the base. And if this is a base election, you want your base out there, and President Trump's the one who can really do that.
So, Ty, why do you think President Trump's approval rating numbers are going up, and what are you going to do to counter that?
Well, I think that two things. One, obviously, when you see the increased intensity from Republicans over Kavanaugh, that has a natural effect of giving them more approval to Trump. But I'm not really sure what you need to do to counter it, because Colin made the point that this is going to drive out his base. And if that's true, then that means the Republicans have already written off about 20 to 25 suburban seats and said, OK, those are lost. Now we just need Trump to make a terrible night, not a catastrophic night.
I didn't hear him say that. Colin, you didn't say that.
Well, Ty makes an interesting point. There are races that are tightening up, and there are places in Hillary Clinton carried districts, like Texas 23, for instance, where the Democrats are abandoning ship. Minnesota 8 has all of a sudden come on the map. It's a race that really shouldn't be competitive. And there are races in Nebraska, for instance, that Hillary Clinton carried. So, look, it's a big battlefield. Both parties are going to be looking to make their best investments, but there are races the Democrats should have easily won by now, and they haven't, and that is going to prevent them from having the kind of blue wave they were predicting a few months ago.
All right, let's talk about women, because Mike Emanuel gave us a lot to chew on in terms of statistics and how they play a part. Democrats are up among non-white women, and the big question is, will they go to the polls?
That's the $64,000 question. I mean, midterms, obviously you always see a drop off in voters. And the question is, the enthusiasm that Democrats have displayed over the past 21 months, everything from special elections, small dollar fundraising, grassroots events, does that carry over to Election Day? Because if the numbers that Mike talked about are correct, and that gap translates into presidential level turnout among women of color, among young women, among suburban women, it will be to the Democrats' advantage. But what you just asked is, does Donald Trump and the political phenomena that is Donald Trump help redefine what midterm electorates look like?
All right. It's interesting because we saw Majority Leader Mitch McConnell do something that some Republicans had been critical of him not doing, and that is recognizing that, maybe they ought to talk about Obamacare and what they're going to do for health care. That's something that all women care about. Does this start to then, 19 days out, change the subject in a way that Republicans can jump on? Colin?
Yeah, well, look, there are a lot of issues out there, and I think to just cast women voters as caring about one issue more than another is kind of unfair. But look, if you're someone who is fired up to come out and vote against Donald Trump, you have felt that way since the day he got inaugurated in January of 2017. If you are someone who's coming and starting to tune in and you don't like the way that the Democrats have treated, say, Brett Kavanaugh or some of the angry mobs or some of the more extreme tactics, now your base is getting fired up as well. So the Democratic base has been fired up from the get-go. The Republican base is starting to come home, and it's going to be a close race down the wire. And just last night, the DCCC executive director said he only predicted a two-seat Democratic majority. So everyone on both sides is doing their best to manage expectations, and I think that blue wave has started to really slow down.
Wow, two seats. Very interesting. Colin, thank you very much. Ty, great to have you on the program, both of you.
Thank you.